everyone, and welcome again to Shergroup on the Sofa. I hope wherever you are in the world that you are having a good Thursday, as we're recording this on a Thursday, and you are in a good place. I have with me today my lovely guest, Mike Segall, who I have known from the credit industry in the UK for a few years. Not going to say how many.
Quite a long time.
Quite a long time, just in case we date each other. And before we get into Mike's interview, as we always do, we always give a shout out to our #1 fan. So, hey, Ross Saunders, how are you doing today in Norfolk? And Mike, you're going to give him a little shout out?
Yeah, big shout out to Ross. I hope you enjoy the show.
Okay, well, he does, because he always tells his mum that his auntie's on. So there you go.
That's great.
I've got one fan and a few others, I think. So, so we're going to talk about something that's very dear to our hearts. We've both grown up in the credit industry. Well, I certainly have. And I'm going to find out a bit more about your journey today. So now I didn't plan to be in credit. I fell into it because I ended up being a sheriff, as you know. How did you get into credit?
So some of the most interesting conversations I have are with people who are long-standing in the credit industry. And we all do this. We compare notes of how we got into credit.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a very, you won't believe this, Claire, I was a very shy, introvert teenager.
And that's difficult.
I know, you're just going to have to suspend disbelief a little bit, longer. I had a grandfather who was extremely entrepreneurial, so I knew that I wanted to go into business. But of course, at the age of 15, you don't know anything about business at all. You're just doing your exams. So I decided, and I still look back and think it's quite unbelievable at 15, that I wanted to be a chartered accountant, because I worked out that if I passed all my exams first time, because I'm an end of August baby, I would be the youngest ever qualified chartered accountant in the history of this country.
Okay.
So I would be fully qualified at the age of 22.
Okay.
Imagine that. Well, what an aim. Anyway, by the time I was 21, I don't know whether I gave up accountancy or it gave me up. I just couldn't stand it. I hated going to work. I'll run you very, very quickly through the next 8 years. I then actually worked in the music and nightclub business for 2 years.
Yeah.
I worked with Toya Wilcox, if you remember her.
I do.
A long time ago. And I also learned how to run a nightclub. And I also had a stall at Wembley Market, which was a fantastic market in London in those days. It was the #1 market. And I was selling Happy Days and Muppets merchandise.
Right.
So I reached a point where I thought, look, I can't be doing this all my life, obviously. So I decided to go to university, which I had passed on first time round. Partly because I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and partly because I thought it was a good idea to go to London Uni.
Yeah.
So I spent 3 years reading economics. I spent most of my time at uni doing broadcasting. So I was a journalist on the college newspaper, but I also did 2 series for the BBC. And later in life, I've gone on to launch 2 radio stations, none of which are in existence anymore. And my degree got me into a graduate management trainee program with Marks and Spencer. So I had the most fantastic training with M&S. But what I realized 2 years later on at the age of 28 was that I did not want to work for Marks and Spencer, although it was potentially a job for life. And more than anything else, I wanted to be my own boss. So I went back. I was married by now with a mortgage, so I had to earn money.
Yeah.
So I launched something I really didn't want to do, an accountancy and bookkeeping service.
Okay.
And about 6 months later, a client who was also mentoring me asked me if I'd ever collected money on the phone.
Yeah.
And I said, no, never.
Yeah.
I do books. And he said, well, have a go. You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I went in a week later. And if you remember the time when everybody paid by check, Claire,
I do.
There was a pile of checks on my desk that high. And he just looked at me and he tapped the checks and he went, I know you're not happy doing bookkeeping. This is what you should do for a living. So over the next 6 months, I turned all my accountancy clients into credit control clients. I was 29, and that's how I got into credit. So not exactly a linear route.
No, not at all. And yet a very practical one. And what was your degree at uni? What did you do at uni?
Economics.
Oh, economics. So it was kind of,
Economics is I was going to do English, and I thought I'm not sure that's going to open many doors. But I realized through talking to potential employers that they love people with business and economic degrees.
yes.
Because if you've done English or geography, you might have a great 3 years studying what you want to study, but it doesn't often open many doors. In fact, out of the whole of my year, only one person became an economist.
It's one of those sort of degrees, though. It's a launch pad to lots of things, isn't it? As opposed to one
Yeah,
specific thing. Whereas with law,
exactly.
it's a bit, do law, you're going to be probably
Yeah,
going to one branch of the profession or the other. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of jealous that you did economics, actually. I would have liked to have done that. So you got to 29 and you discovered credit.
Yes.
Um, and what do you love most about it? I mean, what is it that you love?
I'll start with the people. I love the people. Most people in credit are really nice. They are generally not too political in the workplace. They're not boring, but they're not salespeople, so they're not overbearing people. They're generally really nice people who like people.
Hmm.
The other thing I like about credit is you get results all day, every day. So I call it the ka-ching factor. The day you stop enjoying getting a result, you might as well pack it in.
Yeah.
And I love training, mentoring, and coaching staff. And I just love, I teach a course which the Institute used to teach called the Psychology of Collections, because if I'd gone down another route, I think I would have studied psychology, because I find it fascinating. People and the way they react to the way we interact with them is fascinating, endlessly fascinating.
So in that psychology piece, I mean, is that targeted towards customers who owe money in a B2B setting or a B2C, or just everybody? What's your kind of
So
focus?
we only do B2B. I stated quite publicly on LinkedIn that my company, Money Collectors, will not be chasing, let's take an example, a young mum with 2 children who can't afford to pay her energy bill.
Mm,
I'm not interested in heaping misery on those people.
mm,
I am very careful in how I treat debtors. I regard them as two aspects: can't pays and won't pays. That's nothing. That's nothing record breaking. But the way in which you deal with can't pays has become much more interesting. I have bipolar disorder, and as a professional speaker, together with my daughter Eleanor, we go out and we speak about bipolar disorder, PTSD, anxiety, panic attacks, and all those things, which I never spoke about 30 years ago, but which she's written a very successful book on. And I'm a great listener. So the way the psychology starts off is within 10 seconds of listening to somebody, I am listening for the stress in their voice, how they're reacting to what I'm saying to them, and the place that they are in. And we are hugely, I mean, it's sort of a contradiction in terms, but I call myself the empathetic debt collector.
I was going to say
Because,
empathy is
yeah,
that's the skill, isn't it?
yeah, I think you have to do that these days. And of course, when you're very experienced in collecting credit or debt like us, you have this built-in meter, which I call it a liar meter. You know when you're being told the truth, and you know when someone is lying to you. So
Mm,
if someone is talking to you in a very confident, uh, assertive, or even an aggressive way, and saying, "Oh, well, I can't afford to pay this because I've just lost my job and my wife's lost her job," as opposed to someone who you can hear is at breaking point. And they're like, we want to pay, we will pay, but we can't pay at the moment. We're willing to pay in the future. And then, unlike so many other agencies, we break it down. So we asked them, how much can you afford to pay on a payment plan? Can you pay even like, £50 a month?
Mm.
Totally acceptable to me. And if they can't pay that, then we just wait, or we explain the situation to our clients, and often I will hand the debt back to them.
Yeah. Yes, empathy is, I think, an emerging. Well, it's always been there. I dare I say, compassion as well for people, particularly at the moment, with people being, in a tough spot after COVID, and then being stuck with this cost of living crisis
Yes,
on top
yes,
of all of that. And business to business owners are definitely going to feel that in the months ahead. There's no doubt about that. And we've all got to recognise that in whatever field of credit we're in.
yeah. I
And
feel that unfortunately there are still debt collection agencies out there. I was going to say they don't care. I won't go that far, but they perhaps don't have a solid policy surrounding mental health.
Yes, and it's one of those things. It's very easy to sort of dismiss mental health as just somebody trying to sort of skive off, paying.
Yeah.
Of course, I suppose I say fortunate. That's probably not the right word, but we do have a unique vantage point as High Court enforcement professionals to see the people that you're talking about in their true environment or ad
Yes.
environment, and that of
Yeah.
course only it adds to the story, or it takes away, but we do see people, and we're making decisions. That's why I like to do the TV shows, because we are showing people why we go and do what we
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
But you've got to do it all through the phone. It's a skill of talking to people. Do you visit people, or do you do it all through the phone?
I don't knock on doors ever.
Right.
I tend to employ, what's their name, the Shergroup.
Oh, those people. Yeah, we know them. Show groupies, as we now are.
Shergroup. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a tremendous skill to be able to talk to people and encourage them to pay and to get them on track. If you get people on track and they want to work with you, it's very satisfying, isn't it? Particularly if it's
If you're really good at it, you can turn debtors into clients. I've done that many a time. They say, well, we've paid and we really like the way you handled our case. And guess what? We've got some debts and we'd like you to collect them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the simple psychology that when I train someone on day one is your job is to build a relationship with the people that pay you. You start shouting down the phone, you'll go to the bottom of the list, because they've got to pay 200 invoices this month and they're only going to pay 100. So you need to make sure you're really at the top of that list.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. How you handle people is very, very important. So I mean, you've built up this this tremendous body of experience in your career. And I know I remember meeting you for the first time. We met at the Credit Today Awards. We were judges
Yes,
right back in the day when Camilla set up
Yeah.
Credit Today. What an initiative that was,
Yes,
20 plus years ago. Very brave to do that, and a fantastic initiative for the industry. Slightly different to CICM and its magazine, and
Yes.
yeah, just having something very fresh. So I remember you being a judge on that. So what advice would you give to somebody who's sort of, coming into credit and wanting to sort of do the same sort of thing that you've done? What's your advice for those people?
So these days I meet lots of people coming, because I've been working for the last 10 years pretty much as a credit management consultant, traveling all over Europe, and I've been to the States as well. I meet lots of people who are just coming into the profession, and my advice is always the same. Do the exams. There's a career path in credit which didn't exist when we started.
Yeah.
I go around going, look at me, I've got a fellowship of the Institute. Are the exams hard? I don't know. I never took a single exam. because, you know, the criteria
We're
then were different.
lightweights. You know, we're lightweights, right? Because we.
I don't think so. I think the criteria then, in many ways, are actually harder than sitting down and taking exams. You had to have
Okay.
7 years managerial experience. You had to have spent 2 years on a committee of the ICM, which meant that everybody was trying to get on the committee. And I actually invented a completely new role in order to get onto the London committee because there were no spaces. So I decided I'd be the promote. I've always thought that the institute wasn't great at promoting itself. So I decided to be an officer in charge of promotion and marketing. And that got me onto the committee. And then you had to write articles for the trade press, and not everybody can do that. I'm lucky. I've been a broadcaster. I'm pretty good at writing articles about stuff I know about.
Yeah.
Ask me to write fiction, there'll be a blank page in front of me for 5 years.
Yeah.
So my advice is do the exams, get your qualifications, get a broad range of experience. So don't get pigeonholed too young. Be prepared to move about. I worked with people who they'd been in the profession for 5 or 6 years, doing the same thing, built up some experience, and then in order to get on, they moved 2 or 3 times within maybe a 5-year period.
Yeah.
And every move was a promotion, every move was more money, and every move was a greater experience. And the other thing I would say, because I offer to do this with everybody I work with, is find yourself a mentor, someone who's prepared not just to tell you what to do and how to do it, that's training, but really listen to what's going on in your working life. We have a wealth of experience, Claire, so I'm sure you have people coming to you all the time saying, I don't know what to do. You know, how would you advise me? And then just have a long-term plan. You know, you can go off in all sorts of directions. I've done debt collection. I spent the bulk of my life as a credit management consultant, but I also do debt management. So I've sort of embraced all of it because I just enjoy credit so much. And, you know, every day I often say, and I say this to young people as well, I don't feel I've done a day's work since I was 29. I really don't. I came into credit out of the blue, a complete natural, I'm an award-winning credit manager, amazing results. If I'd have been on commission all my working life, Claire, I'd have retired about 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But life isn't like that always. So that would be my advice to a young person. Study hard, move around, get yourself a mentor.
I agree. I have, as you know, I've been very close to the CICM and have been involved with it very heavily. And I have always been in awe of Debbie Tuckwood and what her and Philip King achieved for the educational pathway for credit. So much so that we built a High Court enforcement pathway, which didn't exist, on the back of that experience. So I totally agree with you that getting your qualifications in credit and enjoying building your pathway, and I think they've been very innovative. Debbie's been very innovative in how she's built that, which is, I think, led to a tremendous kudos for the Institute.
Definitely.
You know, which has been very, very good. And as far as mentor, well, yeah, I mean, I can imagine you're a big personality in credit, and so how lucky are people? So if you're sitting there listening to this interview and you're looking at Mike and you're thinking, would he be? I'm sure, you know, you just got to reach out to people like Mike on LinkedIn and say, listen, I saw you on, you know, whatever channel, and I'd love to talk to you about what it means to be mentored by you, and just get his insight, because people can be shy, Mike, can't they? They can look at you and go, well, you know, he's right up here and I'm just starting out, and you know, so you make it easy, right, for people to.
I'm actually the easiest person in the world to talk to. I
There
have
you
no
go.
agenda. I've got no agenda, you know. So.
No, you know, I think I've been able to do the same sort of thing in enforcement. I run a consultancy now for enforcement agents across England and Wales, and I've got a number of smaller agencies under my license. and I encourage them because they are much closer to their customers. They're much closer to the process, and they get great results. And that's what we want to see in High Court enforcement. We don't want to be another County Court bailiff service. Sorry if you support County Court bailiffs, but they are our natural competitors. So I want people that can get results for our customers, you know,
Yes,
and then pass that down the line. So being a mentor, I think it's very satisfying, isn't it? Do you feel old though when somebody asks you to be a mentor? I feel a bit old.
no, I don't. That's because
That's a girl thing.
no, it's because I am old, Claire.
Oh, well, you see, I'm still into
I'm much older. I'm much older than you. So
Is that
no,
right?
it goes against my personality. I just want to give back. You know, I've had so much
Yeah,
um, from the um, from the profession. I got a highly commended recently in one of the awards, which was I think it was called the Giving Award. Um, I do a huge amount of work for charity, which sounds quite trite, doesn't it? You know, I do a lot of work for charity, but the work I do is aimed at previously been aimed at spinal injury and homelessness.
right.
And right now, I'm very focused. I'm a trustee of two charities, which are mental health charities, and another charity which actually promotes Stress Awareness Week,
Right.
which is
Very
coming up in
important.
coming
Very
up in
important.
November.
Yeah.
So I think I'm very big on recognition. I never thought there was enough of it in our profession. And I've won a team award back in 2015 with Cola Co. We won
Yeah.
the Export Credit Team of the Year, and I've come second. It's my lot in life to come second, Claire, which I don't mind. Other people call it first loser, but
I haven't heard that.
I've been commended and come second in many of the different awards, you know, including the CICM awards and the various other awards. There's only 3 awards now, aren't there? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know, but it's any recognition is always valuable and welcome. And you know, the fact that your name is up there is it's good for your personal brand. Doesn't sound to me
It
you're
is.
turned on by that, but I think that is important if you're trying to be mentor and influencer, that you do have a personal brand. Um,
It is important because it gives you more than anything else. It wins you that, you know, the old networking adage, which is people do business they know, like, trust, and respect.
yeah,
Well, it gives you that respect, because if you're standing next to someone who's never even entered an awards and who has 500 connections on LinkedIn, and then they look at me and I've got 10,000 connections on LinkedIn,
mm.
you're off to a bit of a flying start there, really.
You are.
Um,
You absolutely
yeah.
are. So I that's my advice for anybody that's building their career in credit. You know, build your network and use LinkedIn. Philip King actually got me onto the LinkedIn platform. I didn't know about it, but I'm going back 11 years. But get onto LinkedIn and start and connect with credit professionals. And it is quite a close-knit community, and
Mm,
get your qualifications. And you know, you
yeah.
too can be a Mike. And
No, you too can be a Claire.
I don't know about that, but I just think it's you know, if you're in a career and you enjoy it and it's given you a good life, you know, you and your
Yeah.
family, then you know, it doesn't get much better than that. I don't know, there are people that go stellar, of course there are, but you know, if you can
Yes.
look back on your career and go, yeah, I had a good time, that's nice.
Yeah, definitely.
You seem to be in that place, so that's great. Now, so now, I've had memorable days in my career. I'm sure I've had memorable days for good and bad reasons. Sometimes it's been a crappy day, just in
Yeah.
case anyone thought that we're making it look too easy here. But what was your memorable day?
I went to do just a 6-week consultancy with a Dutch telco called Priority Telecom,
Right.
who disappeared many years ago. But they'll never disappear from my mind because I was in their office on the morning of 9/11.
Ah,
and we just sat and watched the TV screens, and everybody in that office except me knew somebody that was killed in that event,
Oh,
because there were lots of telcos in that building. So I was
wow.
watching people I hardly knew because I was there 6 weeks. So that was my worst day ever. And
Oh,
then three
yes.
weeks later, my best day ever was quite unbelievable. I'd been targeted to bring in just six debts. There's six largest debts, which totaled, remember, we're talking about a lot of years ago, 20 years ago. Um, the debts, those six debts between them total £1 million,
Right.
and all six debts landed in the bank on the same day, even though I'd been chasing them for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Un, unimaginable. And the last one was for just over £300,000. And the guy offered me a job. It
As he would.
was a very memorable day. And um, 20 years later, he rang me up. I'm not going to name the person for confidential reasons. And we're now working together again.
Oh, good. That's brilliant. But do you, I mean, that's really what the bug that got me is the variety. I mean, no 2 days are ever the same. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, because I like solving puzzles, and every debt to me is a puzzle.
Yeah.
And every puzzle has a key to solving it, and every debt does as well. And so it's just a constant churning of different debts. No two people are the same. Um, you don't know how people are going to react. You know, when the phone rings on a Monday morning, I hold the phone over here somewhere. You can't see on the screen, can you? No.
No.
It's like as far as I can possibly hold the phone, because you're just going to get F's and B's. Because why have you sent me that letter?
Yeah.
And I just wait for 5 minutes till they've stopped talking, because no one can talk for more than 5 minutes. And then I say, well, actually, I didn't want to send you that letter in the first place. Oh, so why did you? I said, because you haven't paid my client. Now let's have a serious conversation. And by the way, I don't come to work to be sworn at.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the conversation, 9 times out of 10, they apologize. And that's part of the whole psychology we were talking about before. But every day is different. Every single day, you get a phone. I got a phone call out of the blue yesterday morning. It's £100,000 debt, and it's collectible. Well, thank you very much. You know,
Nice.
that'll that'll pay my bills for about 6 months.
I know. I know how it works, but it's having that continual pipeline of business,
Yeah,
which comes from having that persona,
and
your
that's
business.
why, yeah, that's why networking. I don't really, well, I'm working in the business at the moment because there's only me. But 3 months from now, I won't be doing any work at all. I'll be working on the business. For me, that means networking. So I'm the person that goes out and brings work in. Very few people know how to network debt collection. They think you can walk into a room full of strangers and go up to people and go, hello, Claire, I know we've never met before. And the subtext is, therefore, you don't know, like, trust or respect me. But have you got any debts?
Hmm.
And they think you're going to hand over your money there and then, and
No,
life's
it
not
doesn't
like
work
that.
like that.
So I network in a very different way. I'm one of very, very few debt collection agencies that networks at all. And obviously, the fact that I'm a professional speaker helps, because something we'll come on to about franchising shortly gives me a big advantage that I can stand up. You know, speaking in public is people's biggest fear. And I've spoken in front of 1,500 people at the NEC. So, and I've been doing it for 20 years. So I'm like, I'd be very happy to talk to you about debt collection and, do a very subtle plug for my company at the same time.
Of course. I mean, that's why we all get up there and on our hind
Yeah,
legs, those of us that can, because, and also because we have knowledge and experience to impart,
yes,
which is valuable. And I know I've seen you in action, and you can't, you just need to bottle and sell that experience. Really, it's so important for
yeah.
for your clients and for those people who are coming up behind you in the profession. So as a credit management consultant, then what would you say was your niche, or do you have a
So I
niche?
fell in, yeah, I fell into a niche. I didn't set out. I think sometimes if you like say, right, my niche is going to be supermarkets, then
Mm,
you're kind of blinkered because you're trying to get into an area that's already well covered.
yeah.
So I didn't do that at all. I was approached by there's another thing you should do is get your CV on the net because a lot of jobs at the top level are never advertised. They're placed with agents, and the agents will find your CV online and they will call you. So I got a call out of the blue, and to cut a long story short, it turned out to be a 12-month consultancy with Colaco. So Colaco are the largest kitchen and bath. You'll know who Cola are.
Right.
They don't really use the trade name in the UK, but they are the number one in the world for manufacturing of kitchens and bathrooms.
Okay.
Every hotel, every place you go in America, I've just come back from 2 weeks there. Cola just all over the place. And I came in to do a consultancy job, was to write their credit policy, look at their processes and systems, train their staff, collect money, the usual. And they are a $6 billion turnover company. And so I'm allowed to say this. I did a really great job for them,
I
and
love the
because
confidence. I love it.
and because I did, that became my niche. Because I then moved on to Westcon. Now, most people have never heard of Westcon. They are a massive IT company. They basically shift boxes all over the world, and their turnover is about $5.4 billion. And guess what? I did a really good job there too. So I moved on then to Sedgwick International, the loss assessors. They're the biggest loss assessor in the world.
Yeah.
So you can see the pattern developing here. Now, I didn't go out to find these people, they found me. And I was getting references. Obviously, Cola referenced me to Westcon, Westcon to Sedgwick. And then the last one I did at the beginning of this year was Genesee and Wyoming, who are known as G&W Limited. And their trade name is Freightliner.
Okay.
They are the world's biggest freight line company. You know, when you see trains and they have like 100 buckets behind them,
Yeah.
that's an amalgamation that's done by Freightliner.
Wow. I
So
know.
Freightliner
I know that
organized,
brand. Mm.
yeah, they organize all those companies. So that became my niche, and it's not a bad niche, is it? Multi-billion-dollar turnover American companies. Now, would I have ever set out to find that as a niche? No.
No.
And then we got to March this year, and I'm very happy to reveal that I'm now a pensioner.
Right.
I turned 66 in August, and I made a very big decision. I made the decision that I no longer wanted to do consultancy work, and I didn't want to travel anymore, and I did not want to get involved in corporate politics, which I particularly hate,
Mm.
and is one of the main reasons where the longest I've ever spent in one job, Claire, would you believe it, is 2 years. And that was
Really?
the 2 years I spent with Marks and Spencer. That's the longest time I've ever spent. Um, and I made a decision, and the decision I made was to restart up my own debt collection agency, which I'd run for 6 years between 2009 and 2015. I sold it, and the person who bought it obviously brought it into their group, but decided not to retain the name, which I found incredible because I know I decided on the name, but I think it's a bloody good name.
Okay.
And so I went to Companies House, and it was available.
Yeah.
So I've restarted up Money Collectors as a no collection, no fee debt collection agency, full service. We do everything. We do all the legal stuff. We do the mediation. We do the negotiation. We do the court stuff, and we pass the high court enforcement to the Shergroup because they're so good at what they do.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Unsolicited
I didn't ask you to
response.
give me a plug.
And now we have expanded very rapidly because I don't see the point in only having one part of the business, because whilst it's true that there's never been so much debt out there, it's also true that it's much, much harder to collect it
Yeah.
because a lot of people just can't pay you.
Yeah.
So we are doing outsourced credit control. We are doing debt management. So there's the flip side. Probably the only debt collection agency that also helps people that are in trouble with their credit cards and unsecured stuff. And we have this massive, we're going into a massive area, which is quite new and it's not well known. I call it the double payments area.
Right.
I learned about it over the last couple of months. It is quite extraordinary how many very, very, very large companies. So think of the largest company you can, and they will be doing this. They double pay their suppliers. And the reason
Yeah.
they do, there's lots of reasons why they do it, but the main reason is that accounts payable is the poor bridesmaid of any finance department.
Right.
They are generally totally snowed under with work. They're not given adequate resources, either technical or people. And I'm not going to start talking about individual companies, but for every £1 billion worth of accounts payable made, there is £1 million worth that is a double payment.
Ooh.
And I've been speaking to a lot of accounts payable managers, and they are aware of the problem, but they don't know how to resolve it. And we do. We have a nice little piece of software, which was based on an Excel spreadsheet VLOOKUP, which says, right, here's Claire Sandbrook. She paid money collectors £2,000 on the 1st of May. And oh, look, she's paid him the same amount on the 14th of July, but there's only one invoice. Could this be a double payment? And it is. And we are talking, I have worked out that there is approximately £700 million worth of double payments that is sitting in client accounts where they do not return the money because
Yeah.
it's not illegal to hold the money. But we have evidence of companies that, shall we say, not only do they not return the money, but they move the money.
Right.
And so the next statement they send out to their customer does not show the second payment. So they do not make it easy for their customers to understand that they've paid twice.
Right.
And I see this as a huge growth area, and we're heavily involved in that.
That is an interesting angle, using all of your skills to solve a problem that clearly exists, and businesses need that help. So I can
And
see the angle.
the best thing about it, one, no statute of limitations,
No.
doesn't apply. And number two, we can charge pretty high commissions on this stuff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, some of the stuff we're chasing is 15 years old.
Yeah, fantastic.
So it's a bit like PPI. And the way we do it is quite simple. We offer free audits to AP departments, but we don't go direct to the AP manager because it puts them in a little bit of a difficult situation.
Yeah.
So we're doing it top down because my contacts are all like CEO or CFO.
Yeah.
So if I ring them up and say, and they'll generally say, yeah, but of course, you know, Claire, that they don't understand credit management at all because they don't study it. It's not part of their brief. And so they'll say to the AP manager, Mike's going to do a free audit, and may or may not come up with some double payments. Well, I say that we will.
Yeah, and that's a great angle. I mean, it's great to see innovative products coming out of people that know and understand credit, and therefore know and understand cash flow, because
And you know the way it happens the most, Claire. Invoice goes into your company,
yeah,
which you have to authorize.
yeah,
You're on holiday for 3 weeks, so it sits in your email. You come back, and a week later, you find this email. So it's been sitting in your email for 4 weeks. In the meantime, the supplier has chased payment for this invoice. They've gone to AP. The AP goes, oh, well, Claire can't authorize it because she's away. Could you send us a copy invoice and we'll pay it? So they get a copy invoice, which they pay. You then, 4 weeks later, authorize and pass that invoice to AP, and they pay it again.
I
They pay it again.
see.
That is the most common way this happens.
Yeah. So it's kind of like just bad administration, but just needs
It's
to be
bad
charted
accounts
out.
payable. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. It sounds like it's a, and is that unique to the UK, or is it something you're going to do in the US as well, or
It's worldwide
worldwide? I was going to say it's not limited by
because
geography.
these are international companies.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I love about, how you use the building blocks of these long careers, is that we're no longer sort of pegged in by geography or
No.
by what we do. I mean, we can use our experience to take us in all different sorts of ways, which is fantastic. I'm glad to hear another entrepreneur is doing the same thing and building another business model on top of what else you've done that you're going to enjoy. That's good to know.
Oh yeah, one other piece of advice to a newbie is if you can get another language. I'm terribly lucky. I speak fluent French. My grandmother was French. I've worked extensively in credit and debt across France, where they're so astonished that an Englishman can actually speak French that they just pay up.
I speak two languages,
Good.
English and American. I'm afraid that's as far as, after my French O-level disaster.
Yes.
I did
Yeah.
pass my O-level, but I've never conquered another language. So I'm in awe of anyone that can speak another language or languages fluently. It is such a skill. And
people in credit with extra languages get paid much more,
yeah, I'm sure they do.
and they get promoted much more quickly as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to use my age now as saying I'm too old to learn. I'm too old to learn another language. But I admire anyone that can. So, just to sort of bring all that experience to a nice finish for this interview. I mean, what's the future holding for you, Mike?
I've just spent 2 weeks in America on holiday on a family reunion trip with my brother and sister, and we met 20 cousins. It was fantastic.
Oh, wonderful.
And whilst I was at Charlotte Airport en route to Orlando, I got an email from the British Franchise Association telling me that congratulations, you are now a preferred supplier to the British Franchise Association for debt collection and outsourced credit collection and
Wow.
all the allied services. Now, I don't have time to tell you the whole story today, but it happened through a networking contact who jogged my memory about the fact that I had been involved in franchising in the past. So I set out to become the preferred supplier for these services. I achieved it by making one phone call. I must mention the guy's name, Nick Williams. He's like Mr. Franchise UK.
Right, okay.
And I said, Nick, I've just kicked myself in the head because here I am. I launched Money Collectors again 6 months ago, and I haven't thought about franchising.
Yeah.
He said, okay, give me an hour. And an hour later, I got an email copying me in, which he had addressed to the membership secretary of the British Franchise Association, recommending my company as a preferred supplier.
Fantastic.
And sometimes it is just that easy. You make your own luck, don't you?
You do. You absolutely do make your own luck. So congratulations on that.
So we're talking about 600 franchisors and about 100,000 franchisees. So whereas I'm like a swan at the moment, I'm very calm on the surface and paddling like crazy underneath because I need 10 staff.
He needs 10 staff. So if you want to work for somebody like Mike, then look him up on LinkedIn. I think is that the best place to look you up? LinkedIn?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Or look at the website. It's moneycollectors.co.uk.
Okay. So, well, I'm so pleased to hear that despite being in your 7th decade, I can say that because I've just entered it as well.
And having survived very bad, about 2 very bad bouts of COVID.
There you go. We're survivors, and
It makes you
and so
appreciate what you've got.
it does. It really does, and also that we can all move forward. And that's really why we wanted to do Shergroup on the Sofa, so we could showcase terrific people that we've met in our journey, and bring them on and just get them in front of more people in our networks, as Shergroup continues to be a friend to people in business. So thank you so much for this interview, Mike. It was great to see
I've
you
enjoyed
on
it.
the radar. I had never forgotten you from those Credit Today awards, and that was a great time in the credit industry when I was just starting to get some notoriety myself. And I hope that inspires perhaps young credit professionals or credit professionals that are kind of looking for their next big thing. Make your own luck. I'm a great believer in luck, like Mike said, make your own luck. Don't paddle your own canoe, and don't wait for somebody, to come along and tell you how to do it. If you're a credit professional, you've got, a lot of ingenuity just by the job that you do. Now, to wrap up, we'll put all of Mike's contact details in our show notes, and we will be putting obviously Shergroup's contact details in there as well. So please look us up. You can subscribe. Please subscribe to us, on YouTube. We're looking to build our YouTube following, as well as looking us up on all the other channels, and come and look at our website at shergroup.com. But we love to support and showcase our network, and that's what this is all about. So if you'd like to be a guest and follow in the very big steps, shoes of Mike, then please reach out to me, because I've got some interesting people coming up to join this segment. So Mike, thank you again for your time today. I know time is precious and time is money. So
Thank you, Claire.
and
I hope you'll accept my invitation to come on to my podcast, which is called the Debt Podcast, and I'd love for me to interview you.
I would be delighted. You're the first person to ask me. So yes, my sister will be watching this. She'll be laughing her socks off. But yes, I'd love to be interviewed. Don't have to ask me twice. So we can put the world to rights.
Definitely.
All right. So thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. You have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, Mike. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.